It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. Yeah, except it's a diet. Diets are everywhere, we know this, but so many of them now are calling themselves a lifestyle or some other crazy name. It can feel a little bit confusing as to what is actually a diet and what is not a diet. In this video, I'm gonna share with you 15 easy ways to spot a diet in its tracks so you never have to wonder if you're being fooled again. Because that whole, it's a lifestyle thing, it's just not passing with me. At the end of this video, I'm also gonna share with you 3 ways that you can respond to people who are pushing diets on you or who just can't see that their lifestyle is actually a diet. So be sure to stick around to the end because you're gonna wanna put those in your back pocket because you might need them. All right, diet sign number 1 is that you are counting calories, macros, or points. Now, it is one thing to be aware. I mean, macros are important. Carbs, fat, and protein help to keep us full and satisfied, but micromanaging them is a whole other thing. Number 2 is only eating safe foods you feel comfortable with. Now, again, it's one thing to know, oh, I love this breakfast or I love this food, so I like to incorporate that. But what a lot of people do is they stick to safe foods because maybe it's easier. I know the macronutrients or calories of XYZ food, so I don't have to physically log it, but I know that this quote unquote fits within whatever limits I have deemed myself. It's okay to have those preferences, but we should have flexibility to also eat other things. Number 3 is only eating at certain times of the day. Now, I know this whole intuitive fasting thing has gone around in the past year or so. No, you do not need to stick to a schedule, and that's not intuitive. Anytime you're letting something else solely dictate your eating, it's not intuitive. It's a diet. Our bodies don't know the clock, and it's important to honor that. Sometimes we might be hungry at other times than usual. Sometimes we might be hungry late at night. That's okay. Honor it. The clock does not dictate your eating choices. I mean, I used to feel guilty eating lunch before noon. Crazy. I mean, 11:59 versus noon, it is literally a minute difference. It's okay. Cutting back on food is another form of this pseudo dieting. It sounds innocent, but it can quickly spiral out of control. Maybe your pants feel a little tight, or you're going out to dinner and you just try to cut back. It is just another form of saying restriction. You try to curb your hunger by filling it with volume. Now, this could be anything like coffee or water or carbonated soda, or just very high volume, low calorie veggies, providing your body with something to physically fill it, but not actually sustain it. You might trick your body for a second, but our bodies are a lot smarter. It's not gonna last long. Your hunger is gonna catch up with you. Limiting carbohydrates is another sign of a diet. A lot of diets will say you can have carbs, right? But only XYZ amount. Yes, that is a sign of a diet. It's one thing to eat carbs, and it's another to eat an adequate amount that actually sustains our body. Eat the adequate amount. Our intake for the vast majority of adults is mainly carbs. Another sign of a diet or the diet mindset is that you eat differently when you are alone versus when you are with others. Maybe you go out to dinner and you say, okay, I'm gonna order XYZ to come off as this quote unquote healthy person, but then you go home and you dive into the carton of Ben & Jerry's. Been there. Also likely in the diet mindset if eating has become a competition between who can be quote unquote better or quote unquote healthier. As a competitive gal myself, I get this, and I really feel like it is something that fueled my disordered eating. Someone else's body has nothing to do with your food choices, and your body has nothing to do with their food choices. You likely don't know what they ate beforehand. You likely don't know what they ate after, what they might eat later. You don't know what their mindset is with food. You don't know what their body needs. So we can't just emulate the way that someone else eats, which a lot of times we do when we're dieting. So whatever your favorite influencer's eating, whatever I'm eating is probably not necessarily what you are gonna eat, and that's okay. Another sign of a diet is second guessing or judging what you're eating. Now, this could be based on what you ate earlier in the day, what you might eat later. It is kind of like you're playing that game of Tetris with your food, right? Everything has to quote unquote fit into this perfect little game of Tetris. Maybe you're having a day when you're just hungrier. That is absolutely okay. And that is why when we give ourselves these constraints, whether it's calories, macros, points, it can feel so frustrating because our bodies naturally are going to fluctuate on a day-to-day basis. And that's why, again, it's so frustrating because we feel like, oh, I have these days that I feel so hungry, but I quote unquote can't go over whatever limits I have set for myself, or I quote unquote shouldn't, even if something has a more subtle tone like that, it's still setting a restriction. It's likely just gonna lead us to then likely overeating because we were under eating. And that judgment of food, thinking that you shouldn't have it, it's just gonna want you to eat it more, right? So I'm thinking specifically of some stoplight things where things are labeled green, yellow, and red. Even if you're not, oh, this food isn't bad, it's just a red category, we know what that means, right? It's not gonna fly by me. Anything that kind of has this hierarchy of food is gonna be a diet. Following unnecessary dietary restrictions as a way to reduce your food intake, limit your food choices is a diet. And this one can get tricky because a lot of diets are gonna give you a reason. They're gonna tell you why you shouldn't be eating XYZ food, whether your gut can't digest it or it's not, compatible with your blood type, your hair type, your skin type, whatever it is this week. Those aren't really necessary restrictions a lot of the times. Definitely speak to your medical provider. There are actual tests that they can do. Don't get me started on the home tests, actual allergen tests, intolerance tests. There are things that you can do with your doctor to actually see those, but we shouldn't be following just XYZ plan that says, oh, you shouldn't eat XYZ food. That's a diet. And if you are in that category where you do need food restrictions, maybe you have celiac disease and you actually can't eat gluten, or you are severely lactose intolerant, right? You absolutely can be an intuitive eater and not diet. The key is the why. I think of it less as a dietary restriction and is more of an empowered choice, okay? Here's an example. So, okay, maybe I have celiac disease and I'm like, oh my gosh, my stomach is gonna kill me if I ate gluten, right? I'm gonna be in so much pain. That's less of a restriction because I physically, if I had celiac disease, I could go over to the bread that I have on the counter and eat that. I very well could, but I'm choosing not to because I know that's not gonna make my body feel right. That is intuitive. And honestly, a lot of those unnecessary dietary restrictions, they could cause malnutrition. Another sign of the diet mentality is making up for eating quote unquote bad foods, okay? Whether it's, oh, I ate a donut this morning, so I have to have only veggies as a salad for lunch. Or again, maybe I'm going out to dinner tonight, so I have to make sure that I eat all the veggies earlier, right? It's not an even exchange. If we listen to our bodies, if we eat intuitively, it's all gonna balance out over time and we will have a predominantly healthy, or I prefer health promoting diet if we're listening to our full bodies. And no, it's not necessarily just gonna be in a day. There might be, you go on vacation, you eat more what I call soul nourishing foods. That's okay, right? Maybe it's more of a week time, maybe it's longer, maybe it's a season like the holidays. It's not in such an even exchange. You don't need to make up for it. As an intuitive eater, it all balances out. It's a diet, not a lifestyle. Well, if something tells you what to eat, it deems foods good or bad, says what you cannot and cannot have, or should and shouldn't have, even if they say, you can have this food, right? But maybe we shouldn't have it. It's a diet. Now let me be clear, like I said, that lifestyle who says, I'm not a diet, I'm a lifestyle, but here's a long list of things that you need to do, including things like tracking your food, even if it says you can eat anything, but I'm gonna have you track it, or having you weigh yourself on a daily basis, or like I said, maybe they got a stoplight thing going on where it says green, yellow, and red foods, avoid the red foods. It's a diet, and you should run. I do give the diet industry kind of props for being creative with this. I mean, it's a new way to think about things, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Another sign of a diet or the diet mindset is rigidity. So when we have to eat, very, very strictly or quote unquote clean, right? When we don't have that flexibility in our day, that is a sign of a diet or a diet mindset. I'm all for thinking, okay, what's gonna make my body feel good, right? But when we get guilt, stress, or anxiety over having something that maybe isn't, what we would normally eat, that is when we know maybe we got a red flag here. Anything that focuses on the pursuit of weight loss is going to be a diet, no matter how much it is sugar-coated. Now, weight loss is not a bad thing. Weight gain, loss, and maintenance all happen with intuitive eating. I like to focus, and what intuitive eating focuses on is health-promoting behaviors, right? Because we know that when we focus on the scale alone, we focus on the weight, it does not guarantee us to be healthy, right? It does not guarantee us improvement in our health, but health-promoting behaviors can. And I know that's a totally strange concept from what we've been taught, but the science that we've gained is showing us that more and more. Weight is not a good predictor of health. And lastly, basically bottom line, anything that does not allow you to make your own food choices is going to be a diet. Now that we know how to spot a diet and maybe some things to know if you have a little bit of the diet mindset going on, even though you're not following a specific plan, here are 3 ways that you can respond to someone if someone is pushing a diet on you, or someone makes a diet comment, or like I said, just kind of makes any comments about diet culture in general. So the first way that you could respond is to connect in a new way. And what I mean by this is diet culture has become so ingrained in us that it is honestly sometimes second nature to just bring up dieting like we bring up the weather, right? So you could try to find another way to connect, and maybe you connect over, maybe you do connect over the weather. How's it going at work? Or how's the dog doing? You find another way to bond, you kind of steer the conversation in a new direction. If you do this enough, people are gonna start to understand that you're not the person to go to talk about dieting. Another option is to make a joke. If you wanna do something a little more lighthearted, you could say, no foods are good or bad. The only foods I don't eat are the ones that are poisoned. Or, I eat all foods as long as they don't have dirt on them, right? You could make a joke out of that if you wanted to do something a little bit more lighthearted. Or you could say, I'm on a seafood diet. Seafood I want, I eat it, right? I trust my body's gonna give me the cues to what feels good and what doesn't. That's intuitive eating, guys. The last way that you could respond to diet talk is to educate and inform. So maybe you say, you know what? Have you heard about this thing called intuitive eating? I used to think that way too, that I would need to follow a diet, but it's totally not true. And actually, they set you up for weight gain and they are not gonna really improve your health. I do recommend typically using this if you are further along in your intuitive eating journey to show it to other people, right? To educate people, but don't feel like you have to take on saving the world, especially if you are newer in your journey. Instead of turning to a diet, it is important to tune into your own body's needs, wants, cravings, what makes it feel good, what doesn't. This is how we are gonna foster both mental and physical health. That is what intuitive eating is, and that is what I teach and preach here on this channel and in the Society Intuitive Eating community. I will link some of the resources that I have on what intuitive eating is, as well as how you can join the Society Intuitive Eating community in the description of this video. You do not need another diet gorgeous. Like I said, they're all just a wolf in sheep's clothing, even that lifestyle. I hope this video was helpful in allowing you to understand and be able to identify a diet, and maybe even if you're not following a specific diet plan, to be able to identify some of those diet mindsets that we might have kind of lingering over. Diet's a diet, no matter what it's being called. See you guys next week with another video.